Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the REDX podcast. My name is Andrew, and I am so excited for today's guest. I know I say that a lot, but this time I really, really mean it. He's an agent, he's a team lead, and he is the number one followed real estate agent on TikTok. If you haven't heard of him, please listen up because today we are going to take a deep dive into methods and strategies that our friend here uses to create impactful, engaging content. Please welcome back to the show, Zach Foust. Zach, my man, how are you doing today?
Doing good, man. I don't know how long that intro is going to last. There's a lot of people on my tail, a lot of people on the, a lot of people that have pierced the million veil.
Trying to take your number one spot. How dare they?
Yeah, man. It's all for them. They can take it. They can have it.
Yeah,
I want
that's
followers
all
here in
right.
Delaware, and we don't even have 1.6 million people. So
That's well, hey, if your TikTok following beats out the number of people in your state, you're doing something right. So
it means we should be selling more homes.
yeah, maybe branching outside of Delaware a little bit. I don't know.
Hey, that's in the cards more than you know right now. Nothing I can speak to, but yes, we're
Okay.
actively looking to get in the multi-state because there's so much opportunity, and Delaware's so daggone small.
Right. Well, we're looking forward to seeing where that takes you, Zach. Before we get going with our amazing podcast today, just a few items of business for the audience. The usual good stuff. If you are joining us live, remember that this is a participatory event. If you have questions for our expert Zach today, please chime in the comments. Even if you don't have questions, say hi, let us know where you're from. We'll do our best to get those answered. And as always, like and subscribe on YouTube, Facebook, wherever
Hit
you
the
are at.
bell,
Yeah, you got it. And yeah, that's about it. So Zach, let's get into it.
please.
Last time you were on the show, you shared your journey into real estate, getting into social media, some tactical tips like how to capture an audience's attention, some niche targeting tips, stuff about content creation and leveraging REDX. A lot of amazing advice. So if anyone hasn't seen that first episode that we did with Zach, please go check it out. It's in our YouTube. But today I want to take a deeper dive into some of these specific methods and strategies that you use to create that compelling content, namely your ghost method that I've heard you talk about before, Zach. So we'll get into that. But let's warm up with just telling our audience about the importance of impactful storytelling, because that's what I love about following you on social media, Zach, is that you're always telling a story. You've always got a great hook. It's always going somewhere. It's not just meaningless, let me get it out there content. It always has a bigger meaning, whether it's humor or information or education or whatever it is. Such good storytelling. So let's get into that. The importance of storytelling through
Yeah.
social media.
Well, we're always storytelling.
Hmm.
If you're a business owner, you're definitely storytelling. If you're a salesperson, if you're a parent, I know my daughter's about to be 5. I know storytelling and negotiating kind of go hand in hand
Right.
sometimes. Leverage a little bit of the imagination to make bedtime happen. But the storytelling stinks when you're not good at it because
Mm.
it's very tough to be self-aware enough to realize it's what you need. There's a lot of
Mhm.
people that will be hooked into a story around a brand, like the way Anheuser-Busch will get some beautiful horses in front of their beer, and all of a sudden alcohol's good. You know, eat fresh, yellow and green. Oh yeah, these subs are
Right.
healthy. No, they're not.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
branding can shift stories behind brands can shift things so much. But when it comes to our own content, I think just as humans, we do this, but in the
Sure.
real estate industry, a ton, man. We can't put it into practice ourselves, and we end up sounding like robots, like flyers with mouths. We're just talking about interest rates, and we're doing funny memes, and occasionally, doing like a motion, like a voiceless dance with some stuff that pops up. I don't know. There's a
Right.
lot of different things that people are doing, but ultimately, if you're not putting your face, your voice, your brand in front of the camera and the microphone, it's not doing as much as it could.
Right. Right. So you say storytelling sucks when you're not good at it. For a newer agent who's maybe never even been on social media, what's advice do you have for them to really get into storytelling, the art of storytelling, to kind of ramp up and get used to that, build that skill?
That's a great question. I I love the idea of conscious consumption. That's like
Hmm.
my go-to for like anything I want to learn on social media. I'm going to go to the source. Like if
Right.
I want to create a certain way, talk a certain way, like let's say there's someone who has an audience that mirrors one that I would have the interest of having in my area.
Hmm.
I'm gonna go and I'm gonna watch their content like I'm watching the highlights, or not the highlights, like the game footage from the opponent I'm about to have. Right.
Right.
I'm watching this. Oh my goodness, that like took up my whole screen. I hate
Sorry.
it. Scared the hell out of me. On my end, my face just went whoo.
Yeah, well, I was trying to blow you up a little bit to get some good
Um,
to get some good social storytelling clips later, and we want you in high
sure,
def.
sure.
So
um, Whereas like watching it like you're watching game tape and watching like, why did they start their sentence that way? What about this clip caught my attention? What about this clip didn't get my attention? Like really deciphering the difference between the two. Like we consume so much content just kind of blindly. Yet if we actually like were self-aware about, what made my thumb go from here to here, what made me go from mindlessly scrolling to looking up at the TV, what on the TV grabbed my attention. Like if you can start to learn the art of attention gaining, then you ultimately are learning storytelling, because that's the ultimate form of attraction, is a good story.
Yeah.
So if you can really grasp why your attention is being pulled one way or another, and kind of hone it into your own version of it, like R&D it, slowly but surely, you're going to pick up on these nuances that you never thought of before. It's like if you go to the gym for the first time, you're going to be like, all right, lift weight, drink water, don't eat fast food.
Right.
And then within 2 months, you may be tracking on an app how much calorie intake you have, and maybe eventually getting into making sure you're getting the protein. And all of a sudden you're like, okay, this is arm day, I do cardio beforehand. And then within 2 years, you're structured and like organized, because you start picking up little nuances, little tiny things. Like when you're benching, it's not just lift weight up now. It's like, okay, pin your elbows back, make the feel like you're trying to bring your chest in together, and like try to use your bigger muscle. Like you start to think differently. So if you put yourself in front of the camera more and you tell more stories, you're going to get better at it.
Right. Absolutely.
And that was me rambling too long, but
no. That's fine. That's all great, useful content. You went a little bit low quality, and you're a little laggy and blurry here, Zach. I'm wondering if something changed in your internet here. Yeah. Looking a little bit, a little blurry. We can hear you great, and that's all that really matters. So no worries. But
okay. I can turn off I'll turn off the camera for now and just be a talking head for a second.
Okay.
You can take it
Great. That's all right. So that's great. Conscious consumption, right? Like even figuring out, and I love this idea of kind of dissecting the story of content that you're consuming to try and figure out how to present and tell your own story, right? Looking for examples of other people who do it. All great advice. And I'm wondering, I was thinking about this yesterday as I was preparing for this podcast, Zach, is a lot of this storytelling and conscious consumption, and a lot of what we're even talking about today, has to do with social media, right? But I think that there's a storytelling aspect to conversations and relationships and the journey of helping someone buy or sell a house, right? And I'm wondering if you can maybe connect those dots and find any crossover there for our audience, because I think a lot of our audience, yes, they want to be on social media. They know they need to be on social media. They're probably working on it, but even if they aren't there yet, let's tie in storytelling to the actual art of real estate, right?
The art of storytelling, kind of more great. Can you hear me okay still? I just want to make sure I'm still coming in okay.
Yep, I can hear you. Yep, you're good.
With the art of storytelling and more good stuff, with the art of really, it's art, like I'm some kind of artist. I'm not. I'm still learning it. But grabbing attention is more so like the granular part of storytelling. When you're in a house with a stranger who maybe you've had one phone call with, in a home that you've never seen what's around the next corner, a little bit of ability to build rapport on the fly is needed. When you're showing that house to the person you literally only met online, and now you're meeting them at a house that doesn't have electricity for the first time at a property you've never seen before. It's never something your mom would have wanted you to do, but you need to have the ability to build that relationship, to speak in a way that they're going to hear you. And there's a fine line between being salesy and being someone that's seen as a conversationalist and someone that they actually want to be in the room with. And I think the fine line, honestly, is just one really a pattern, which is you're smiling, you're listening, and you're mirroring. If you're doing those three things,
Mm-hmm.
you can do that on repeat until you die, and a lot of people are going to be at your funeral. Like that's really the deal. And if you can actually back it up, and this is the crazy part, if you can back it up by actually giving a care about what they're saying, like honestly, like
Right.
when you get to the point where you honestly are asking questions because you really want to know the answers, you're really interested, that's next level. That's next level. If you get caught sleeping at the wheel, they'll be like, oh, this guy's just here to get my commission. But like that is the nitty gritty of it. And then you learn other people's stories and you're listening to them. And storytelling is so much an art of listening to other people's stories. A lot of authors interviewed 200 people to put together their book. It's ultimately someone else's stories that they've stitched together. So the more that you're ingrained into being open to what that person wants to hear, like so much content, we're making it for ourselves. If we focus on making the content for who we're trying to talk to, the listing appointment is about them, not us and selling the home. The buyer showing is about their journey and their first home, not us getting like, if we switch that perspective, everything changes.
Yeah,
You know?
absolutely. I love how you connected that because I mean, it kind of answered my own question where I think any agent who is anxious about getting on social media and doesn't know what story to tell on social media, they need to just think, oh, I'm already doing this in person.
Sure.
And that is way scarier to me, I'm sure to many people. So just take those storytelling skills, like you said, that you have and that you
And
implement
all the
when you're in
skills,
the
Andrew,
house and
and
just
all the
put those in front
skills.
of them.
As I throw this Germex on my hand, hear me out. When you go to Target, man, you don't go to Walmart. You're bougie. When you go to Target or Whole Foods, all right, and someone comes up to you, right? Let's say you're a real estate agent, and someone came up to you and said, Andrew, how are you doing? You're like, Audrey, it's good. How's Jacob? Good, good. I actually had a question. I'm good. I ran into you. How's the housing market doing right now? Andrew, are you going to stop doing what you're doing right then and there and say, hold on, go to the bathroom, check your hair, make sure your voice don't sound weird, make sure your clothes are on
Right.
right,
Yeah.
the lighting's good, make sure all that's, I've read my script over, I know exactly what, no, you're just going to answer the question and you're going to be organic and you're going to be real and you're going to be yourself.
Mm.
And if you can somehow take that and put it in front of a camera,
Right.
you win. You win. And the beauty of being able to have the same skill set used on and offline is your camera work and your content creation strategy ultimately becomes your training field for the real world,
Mm. Mm.
right? If you're creating content at scale for people that need to know more about the real estate market, for people that are trying to buy, sell, get the best, whatever your niche is, and you're consistently learning on it so you can create content for it that's valuable and more valuable and more valuable. You keep raising the bar and raising the bar. You've basically had mental conversations and interviews with these people for days and days and days and years. So when you finally meet them in person, of course the rapport is there. Of course they like you. Of course they feel like you know them before you even met, because you have. You know their problems backwards and forwards, and you already solved them 5 times, and then one with an attorney. Like, you
Yeah.
got it taken care of. That's
Yeah.
where content is a cheat code.
Yeah, and I think it can go both ways. Where if we're taking it back to our target conversation, right?
Yeah.
If you're worried about what to say on camera, you don't know what story to tell. Get in front of the camera and say, I had the greatest conversation with someone at Target the other day. They asked me
Yeah.
this question. Here's what I said. Put that out there.
Yeah.
If you're already the expert, if you're already answering people's questions on the phone, in person, at
Wow.
parties, at open houses, just tell people that someone asked you that and that you answered, and tell them how you answered it. Right? Like the content is already there. The story is already there. I think it's easier than a lot of agents think it is to tell that story
Yeah,
on
Glenda Baker
social
is a
media.
perfect example of storytelling, and she's one who talks about constantly her
Mm,
ability to break that code of being able to talk off camera the same way she talks on camera by
right.
simply looking off camera and talking to another person. And that's how she tells stories just like that. I had a conversation with somebody. This is what happened 2 years back. This crazy thing, and looking off camera, and that's how. But you got to find a way to be the same person,
Yeah.
because that's the same
Absolutely.
person showing up to the listing appointment.
For sure. And one of our most loyal, regular viewers, Amanda Smith, says that makes sense. We already do it a lot. We just need to capture it authentically on video.
Yeah. Do it
Great
a
way to wrap
ton.
that up, Amanda. Perfect. Well, that's excellent, Zach. I love that. I think we could talk about this topic all day. I don't want to spend too much time on it because I want to get into the ghost method. So
Sure.
if we can just do an abrupt change and get into this, we're telling impactful, authentic stories, but maybe we need a method to actually create that content. Zach has the method.
Sure. Yeah, just a framework to think about. I think there's a couple different frameworks. I think one is in this ghost method, which really just means grab, hook, overview, storytell, target. And they're just 5 real keywords to think about when it comes to being in front of the camera. When that consumer is scrolling, you really need to grab them by the neck, by the throat. You need to get their thumb to get off the screen and go over here. You need to grip them up. There needs to be some reason, some piece of value that's really going to stop them. And that leads into your hook, which is really that first 3 to 5 seconds. Like people call the first 1 to 3 seconds the hook. Nah, there's a lot of people you're not getting to the first second. Just to be really real. All right. So you got that hook now of this is your opportunity to convince them why they should continue to watch. You have not earned them yet. And that is where the hook comes in. This is where your interesting, unique perspective, your probing question, your outlandish transition, something that grabs that attention. And it could be a consumer that's more laid back, higher net worth. Maybe you're looking at something that's going to grab their attention and goes after their problem. But whoever you're talking to, you need to address their problem in these hooks a lot of times, because that's what's going to draw their attention in and attract the right viewer. With the overview of the subject, this is what comes after. You're now giving a little overarching the subject. So if I were to say something like, how would you disarm an entire generation economically? All right. Boom. Now that was my hook. Now I'm going to go into the overview. Well, I would start by putting interest rates at a point where you can't get into your first property, meanwhile driving up rent, keeping you at your family house, and go into the overarching of the subject. Then I would storytell. And that's the S. The storytelling, the topic is what's going to keep them there. You can be factual and boom, bam, bop and bullet pointed all you want. If there's not a flow and almost like kind of a ride around with what you're talking about, you're not making it enjoyable to listen to, you're just going to be noise. And there's a lot of that. There's a lot of noise. And storytelling can be effective in a few different ways. One, questions. Ask questions along the journey of the storytelling, because that's going to bring them into the story, put them in their perspective. You say, what would you do in a situation where this had happened? Well, I'll tell you what they did. Is a variation of how you can question into a story. But not just questioning, making sure that when you're actually telling it, that you're telling it with precision. Right. Ahs, even speaking fast can sometimes be signs of you don't really know 100% what you're talking about. So having clarity in your speech, and sometimes that means before you make that video, popping down 4 or 5 bullet points, not a script, but 4 or 5 bullet points that you're going to hit on, that this is the format in which I need this delivered. I'm going to fill in the gaps. I'm a knowledgeable real estate professional who's done this over 100 times. I know the steps, but I just want this little guide, an outline. So with that storytelling, you can be extremely passionate, and your passion can draw that consumer. And that works all the time. Strong emotion. That's like the cheat. If you just get really excited and then all of a sudden they're like, what are you excited about? So storytelling can be done in a ton of ways. It's going to be different for every video, but you get better every time you do it. And of course, every video needs to have a target. And that's the T. There needs to be a reason why you even made it. And I strongly advise that your target's engagement. All right. Because ultimately we want them either entertained, engaged, or enraged. And that's my funny way of saying, we want them to feel like, emotional or, polarizing topics, one side or the other. And I say engaged is the easiest one to go to, because if we're aiming for engagement, then that means we're aiming after a community. Entertainment is a dime a dozen. You can make a meme, you can follow a trend, you can follow some little viral, what have you, and you can get some views. But did you gain following around what you do that makes you money and builds your wealth in your career? If you didn't build that, then it doesn't really matter. I know it matters a little, and I get it. I've been there, but virality doesn't treat you really well. And it's going viral consistently in a subject that you don't profit off of definitely doesn't do you well. And there's a lot of people in this industry. Don't be fooled, that are making content for other realtors, and they've forgotten who they're even making the content for. They're just trying to impress their industry. So make sure you know what your target is. Who's this for? Why is it for them? And will they engage? Will they be entertained? Or will they possibly be enraged by this and generate even more engagement?
I love that. I love that. And I love this ghost method, because I think, kind of tying back into what we were talking about earlier, it makes a lot of the intention and the intention behind the impact, behind the story. It really gives some structure and meaning to the whole thing, rather than what we hear a lot, and which I don't think is necessarily a bad way to get started, which is just get in front of a camera and post anything, right? I don't think that's necessarily bad advice, but it's,
I think a great, my favorite piece of advice, I actually came up with this on the fly, and then someone started doing it, and all of a sudden now it's like, okay, cool, that's a great idea. You can take the G and the H out of the ghost method, and like, let's say you want to make a post about the housing market and what's going on. Well, we'll look up hashtag housing market, or just go on TikTok and look up the housing market. The SEO on TikTok's great. Find a video that's doing really well in the last week or so on that. See what they're talking about, and then hit the share button or the more button, and then there's a button you could stitch it, and you could stitch the first 5 seconds of their video, and then have your own opinion. And you basically have given yourself a guaranteed, you have proof this hook works. Like, you're not going to pick a video that doesn't have 300,000 likes. You're going to pick one that has a lot of engagement, and then boom, you have a guarantee that, okay, this drove entertainment. Let me put my opinion on the other side. So then you can just boom, jump right into overview storytell and be an opposing, oftentimes being an opposing voice is the best, because then you're going to get the enraged section in the comments. You have the people sometimes from that person arguing with you and vice versa. And don't go out there to set fires. You're not the Joker, but make sure that you're actually believing what you're saying. But if you can take on a hook and utilize it, and you know you have proof it's already worked, I love that. I love that, and it works.
So a couple questions coming to mind here. One, does the hook always have to be a question, or can it be a statement, a declaration?
Well,
so, or are questions just the most effective kind of hook?
Hooks can be a lot of different things. I think hooks can be, like, for say, like a cliffhanger. Like, I remember like watching Lost back in the day, and back when TV shows only came out once a week, and end of an episode, or hell, end of a season, I would just sit there and I'd be like, all right, yeah, I'm gonna wait 8 months until this comes back out, and I'm gonna think about it every day until then. I was hooked.
I want more.
I was gonna watch the next episode, no matter what, no matter how much I hated it toward the end, I was still gonna watch. And I was hooked. Had nothing to do with short-term attention span. It had everything to do with my relevance to the content and how much I wanted more of it. So I think that really needs to be your barometer when you're making a hook, is like, on a scale of 1 through 10, how much do I, if I was watching this, like maybe scale 1 through 5, if I watched this hook, how much would I absolutely have to stick around? Like, 1 being, this is the worst thing ever, I'm scrolling immediately. 5 being, there's no way I can scroll away. I'm going to literally put my phone down and put my hands like this, like, and rate it and be honest with yourself.
Yeah.
Because that's it. And like with that hooking of the, just, I need to know what's going to happen next, could be, there was this one example. I want to give a good example. I wish I could give the link for it. There was a person who made a video, and it was on a meme page. She had paid to have her listing video put on a meme page. And at first I didn't even know I was watching a listing video, because it just said what they found in the backyard changed the neighbor's life or something like that. And so I'm sitting there watching it, and then they're like, okay, through the living room. Okay. Then they're upstairs. Oh, look, this nice bedroom. Okay, let's get to the outside. And then it's getting to the point where it's just about to get outside. And I'm like, I don't know if I'm allowed to curse, but I literally said, I said, Flipper, I just watched a listing video. Damn it. They got me. I was like, that's great. That's a great $500 you just spent on that meme page. And then in the backyard, it was I forget what it even was at this point. I don't even remember. It was like a year back. But I remember that's a thought, or that's a style that could be.
Sounds like they enraged you a little bit there, Zach.
It did enrage me a little bit, just from the marketing perspective.
Yeah.
But Yeah, I forget exactly when I'd watched that one, but that's an example of like you can hook people in a multitude of ways.
Mm,
You know, I had a video that I really wanted to talk about why the housing market was in its current state.
mm,
Why are prices this high? Why is affordability so tight? Why does Gen Z feel like they'll never own a home? Well, I
right.
want to break this down, but I don't want to sound like a realtor.
Sure.
So I started the video saying, you know, you remember when that guy bit that bat and they told us all to go home for 2 weeks? It turned into 2 years and then they started sending us money. Remember that?
I remember. Yeah.
So, and that's how I started the video. I said, you know, and over that time, they would print 36% of our economy, and that's not good. Plus, 60% of the US dollars that are currently in circulation were printed within the last 5 years. That's not good. So, because of this inflation, affordability has done X, and that has caused home prices to do this.
Mm,
And that's why they've risen interest rates to hope home prices go here, but it's not working. So they're just trying to continue to go up until one day maybe it comes down. And like not Barney style explaining it, but starting it with a story that locks them in that everyone could agree on.
right.
Everyone knows what I'm talking about. Everyone's on the same page. And but at the same time, just like you said at the beginning of this, you said, Zach, all your videos, they always have a point there at the end. There's always something
Mm,
there. You know, it gets to the point, but you're sitting there and you're like, okay, I know what you're talking about. I'm with you. What are we talking about here? And it's not till like second 13 that I've even brought up the subject of inflation.
right.
And at this point, I've already sent a lot of signals to TikTok that, hey, people like this video. It's going to go out to more people.
Absolutely. I love that. I love that. So, um, yeah, that's great. And I think another question I had that popped up earlier when you were talking about the comments, right? Enraging
Yeah.
people, getting them to go into the comments. How heavily do you engage with the comment section? How actively do you respond to enraged people? How actively do you, like you said,
All
don't
the
defend
time.
yourself, but stand up and have some
No, I'm never
convictions or
defending myself. Never
right, right,
defending
right.
myself.
But
You're going to
how
defend
often
yourself
do you get in there and respond to comments and interact with these people, or do you just kind of leave them alone?
all the time. Love
Okay,
it. Especially as the admin profiles, because we have our loft admin profiles for
sure,
sure. No, they deserve a response. And oftentimes it's always an empathetic response, but
sure.
especially if they're in that enraged state. But a lot of times what we're speaking on, and that's the other thing about it, is what we're speaking on oftentimes is factual. Like
Mm,
I'll speak factually about the housing market at this point can't crash in on itself. If it were to crash, it has to be from some third party variable because based off simple supply and demand, we're not anywhere near a formula where that could cause a crash. There would have to be student debt, war, mass unemployment, some other factor. And that's what I say. And then people will be in the thing, well, the housing, I can't afford a house. That's not fair. I'm like, you're right.
mm,
Doesn't change the facts. Yeah, I understand that 84% of Americans right now that are under the age of like 35 can't afford a home. I get that. That
right.
sucks. That's stupid. And renting is almost more expensive in most areas.
Mm,
So it is tough. And so the empathetic storytelling is so important right now. You can't
mm,
just sit there and talk about interest rate this and oh, we can refi later and oh, well, it's going to get better and oh, well, prices will just go up later. Like, cool. A lot of people you're talking to literally are just thinking about how they're going to pay their electric bill.
yeah, yeah,
And that talk about, well, you should buy instead of rent. They're like, well, fuck you, f
yeah.
you. Sorry,
Right. No, you're
but,
good.
but essentially that's what it sucks because you may be coming from a good place of really trying to inform people. If you may have not thought of it from this perspective, it could be a good thing.
Right.
All they're hearing is buy with me, commission, buy. Like that's all they're hearing. So the empathy is so big.
Yeah, and does that empathy ever cross into like you saying, "Well, I know it seems like you can't afford a house right now. Do you want to explore your options? Maybe you can,
Of
of course." Because
course.
to me, it seems like the comments is maybe where you get some lead gen, you get some
Of
potential
course. Well,
prospects,
even in
right?
the video itself, if we're talking about like, where price points are at right now, or the
Mm,
difference between the 8% rate of 2000 versus the 8% rate of today. Okay, the home price was 120 then. All right, that's the difference.
mm,
So like we're talking about, there's a lot of lenders, no offense to the lenders on that they're like, oh, well, credit cards are 24%. Okay, well, the credit card debt's 2,000, not
right,
400,000.
right,
There's a difference.
yeah,
But posts like that don't come off empathetic.
sure,
But if you come at it from the other direction of right now, interest rates are nuts. They're crazy. This is something that is affecting so many people, and on top of inflation is making it daggone impossible for some. But, or I'm sorry, for most, but for some, it could still make sense. And hear me out on, if this is your scenario where credit cards are stacked up and you're getting a recurring interest debt of more than like 2,000 every month, you're just having to, slap every single month and hope it goes away. Let's talk about a refi. Yeah, you're going to have a higher monthly payment of $1,500 more, but you're not going to have this like, okay, cool. Empathetic conversation leading to a solution for the right person.
Right.
But flip it. Start with empathy. Don't end with empathy, because then they don't get to the empathy. They'll stop reading before they get to the empathy, or their mind's made up and they frame your empathy as salesmanship.
I was about to say that. I was about to say, when empathy comes last, you just come across with sales breath. Right?
Absolutely, because you've already framed the conversation. If you frame with empathy, it's seen with empathy.
I love that. Absolutely. Excellent, Zach. Well, we're running low on time here, and we've gone through so much amazing content today. The ghost method of how to create this compelling content, and how to be an impactful storyteller. Any last thoughts or any last nuggets of gold you want to leave here with our audience today?
Just start shooting. If you haven't started content at this point, you probably have no idea where to start.
Right.
And frankly, I don't envy you, because it's a pretty intimidating thing to look at. I would strongly consider partnering up with someone who's going to take a lot of the weight off your shoulders, like a REDX, like a coach, like a Tristan or someone like that, who can come in and assist you in that world. I have a group coaching for $75 a month for those people, those to intermediate. Not plugging that, but I'm just saying, find your people and align with them to help you get there. And if you're in the status where you are posting content, you just want to be like, hey, I want to make content that's going to generate clients, then let me tell you right now, empathy in this time is going to build you so much brand share over the next 6 to 8 months. It's going to be crazy. If you hear 6 to 8 months and you're like, Zach, if I don't have a check between that, I might not make it that long. Then I'm telling you right now, direct content. And this is for only the people stuck around this long, but direct content. We're going through a challenge right now with our team, 7 listings in 30 days. And one of the big pieces of that challenge is 100 audio DMs and 100 video DMs going out within that 30-day period.
Wow.
And I'm telling you right now, those video DMs, tell me you shoot a 30-second video for 100 people and you don't generate a listing with a listing generating script, you're something is drastically wrong if you don't.
Right.
So the direct one-to-one video too is great. If you already got a great team, think about transactional videos that explain the process before people have questions or make mistakes. If you've already done that, think about pre-listing appointment content. Think about long-form YouTube with like lists, top 7 this, top 5 that. But yeah, we can go on forever.
Amazing. Well, let's go on forever on another episode. We're definitely going to have you back, Zach. We always dive into such amazing topics. So thank you, Zach. Thank you for joining us today and sharing all this with us today. Yeah, you bet. And to our audience who is still with us or who is catching the replay of this, thank you for joining. If you want to go see all of these methods and tips and strategies in action, please go check out Zach's TikTok. Zach, where can they find that? What is your TikTok handle there?
Yep, Instagram and TikTok, Zachary Loft.
Zachary Loft. I'm going to put it here in the comments for everyone in the chat. So go check that out. Again, for hundreds, I'm sure, of amazing examples of how to implement the ghost method, how to be an impactful storyteller, how to entertain and engage and enrage your audience, and ultimately build that strong social media presence like Zach has done. So Zach, thank you again to everyone else. Please join us every Thursday at same time, same place, 1:30 Mountain Time here on YouTube or on Facebook. If you want to subscribe to the podcast and get $150 off signing up for REDX, scan the QR code that's on your screen right now, or go to the redx.com/podcast, and we'll get you that deal and get you updated on our weekly episodes. So Zach, thank you again. Everyone else, thanks for joining. We'll see you next time.